And would you look at that? Played the intro twice because it's so damn good. And no offense to anybody else, but my favorite fan, Little Heathen, was the first one to comment on there, and probably the first one to pop in. Hey, buddy. So it's been a minute. Haven't been behind this microphone in some time. It's for a variety of reasons. All good, really, all really good. Spending time on the weekends with my kids. Actually, just came off back-to-back weekends where I had each one of my twins by themselves for 4 days, 3 nights. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, 4 days, 3 nights. I got a little one-on-one time with Dad and the kids, and it's been pretty great. So they come over on Thursday nights. It's summertime, so I have them Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and most of Sunday. So it really cuts into the podcast time. And you know what? That's cool. I'll trade the podcast for the boys any day of the week. As much as I love the podcast, clearly the boys are way cooler. So yeah, that's kind of what's been going on. I call it like a summer break, but I go through these things where I don't do podcasts for a while, which is never going to get them to stick and grow. And I understand that, but I'm still looking at it as I'm going to look after number one on most of these things, recovery and family right now. And then, maybe the podcast can be more of a full-time thing. So as you can see, got some color. I've been spending some time in the pool. That's been pretty great. But there are some things that I wanted to come on and talk about, and one of which is, if you are one of those people that have listened to some of the podcasts or been following since the beginning, things have come a long way. I have been working at my job as a recovery coach now for over a year. That happened in June, so that's pretty sweet. I'm also doing all the intakes there, so I get to meet every single person basically that comes into the door. I get to sit and have a conversation with them and talk about where they're at and what they want when it comes to overcoming addiction or recovery. And I tell you what, those are some of the best interviews that you can do. And obviously none of those are going to make it onto the interwebs, but just to see some of the people and a glimmer of hope. And there's a couple that I want to kind of lightly touch on as I kind of go through this thing today. I don't know how long I'll be on the stream, but there's a couple of them that I do want to talk about, and because there were pretty special interactions that I had with a couple people, actually 2 different couples. Yeah, so boys are doing well. Boys are, more and more comfortable now. I probably the last time I was doing a podcast with any consistent basis, the kids are still kind of like, we'll come over for a day, maybe we'll come over for a night. and now things are kind of going back to the trust that we had and needed to have as father and sons, and I'm really enjoying the time that I'm getting spent with my kids. And I'm not just saying that because little heathen's listening either. That's the truth, no matter whether he was in the on YouTube listening or not. So I touched on work. I touched on the boys coming over. Work is work. It's a good job. It's talking recovery. It's working with people. I know that there are some people probably on social media that's like, oh, you shouldn't be working with people because you say crazy shit like you're not an alcoholic anymore. Well, if you don't drink anymore, then I don't see why you need to call yourself an alcoholic. But maybe we'll dive into that a little more, right? I do want to talk about that encounter as well. But also with work, we're nonprofit, so got to change hours quite a bit. So that's another reason why the podcast hasn't really been flourishing like it was there for a time. When there's only 2 dudes that work there, me and another guy, and so when he has time off, I have to adjust my schedule because you can't get more than 40 hours at work. And so like this week, I'll be working, I think 9 out of 10 days or something like that. But I can only collect 40 per paycheck. So that puts some strain on trying to get things done and family time and all that stuff. So, it's crazy. I was super fired up when I logged into this thing. Like, I'm going to get on here and I'm going to talk a bunch of shit. And then I get on here and I'm just like, I'm just kind of relaxed. That's what this podcast does for me. It's a relaxing thing. It's a comfort thing. It's really nice to just get on here and even talk to myself if that's all that's listening. But so I did want to touch on an interaction with our dear friend on X. He was back again. I unblocked him because I don't want to block people. I want to try to find common ground. Obviously, this dude is very. What's the word I'm looking for? Is very dedicated to his trolling, and had some back and forth or whatever. And I don't understand why it hurts his feelings so bad. Going back to the alcoholic thing, I don't understand why it hurts his feelings so bad that maybe a dude who's put some really good time, a guy like myself that at the end it was buying a half gallon and a couple half pints or pints to grease the wheels to get that half gallon down. And prior to that, it was 5-8 years of a fifth a night. I've went from that to being able to count on one hand since I started this recovery. Maybe 2. Let's be fair. And 2 hands since I started this honest recovery journey back in, I guess it would have been 2022 now. That's pretty amazing, right? And so, I look at recovery as it's self-diagnosed. So you have to diagnose yourself, really. Other people can look and say, yeah, you got a problem. But until you're ready to say, yeah, I have a problem, not many changes are going to be made. So why not be able to diagnose yourself? I'm not cured because I know what happened if I go back to drinking, but I don't drink anymore. So I'm not going to call myself an alcoholic anymore. So that's just where it is on that. And it really bothers this guy like a lot. He calls me not sober. That's like the name. I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, it's super creative. But he wants to get on and then he wants to harass anybody else that comes on. It's like, and I'm going to end talking about this dude, and I haven't said who it is, but I think if you are anywhere in the sphere of X, you know exactly who I'm talking about. And I've told him this several times that it doesn't stick. He just keeps coming with memes and links. Like, if your recovery is real recovery and you were a real alcoholic, anything that you have, I don't want. I don't want the real stuff. I'll take what everybody else is dishing out and wanting to talk about over your crap. You're just a miserable bastard. And so hopefully, maybe if you listen to this, he'll hear that. I mean that with all the love in my heart, that you are a miserable bastard and you should probably piss off. But anyway, I do wish you the best, and I hope that you find you're happy, and that is the truth. So, also, just kind of looking at this, like, if you're watching on video, got my weak beard growing here. It's not my strong point. Growing facial hair is not my strong point. Anyway, Back to it. So a post that I also wanted to talk about that kind of came up right before I logged on, and I copied and pasted it. It's from oh geez, it's from Mary Beth from Junkie to Judge. If you've seen that podcast uh, of mine with her, a fantastic guest, wrote a book with a story that is just incredible to see where she has come from, where she was, and where she's come from, and the work that she is doing for women and everything. But she posted this on X. She's always got great stuff. As America's high, let's try that again. As to America's high addiction rate, I think we overfocus on reducing supply, which hasn't ever worked, rather than reducing demand, which would include addressing why the U.S. has one of the highest rates in the world. I think that's a very interesting point. Why does the U.S., the self-proclaimed greatest country on the planet, have one of the highest, if not the highest, addiction rate? It's why is that? If things are so great, grand, and wonderful here, why are so many people in the system for drug use or possession? Um, why are so many people? Why is it a revolving door in just a little town? And we're not super little town. We're in, well, I won't say where we're at, but we're in a pretty decent sized town for Michigan. Um, why are so many people struggling? And I think it's part of what you said right there is when she said which hasn't ever worked, and that's we focus on reducing supply, meaning we got to go out and get the guys that are making this stuff and selling this stuff. Well, for me, the people that are making it are Anheuser-Busch and other alcohol companies, and the people that are selling it are on every fucking corner of the city. So that's not going to stop it. It's not going to stop alcoholism for sure. It's a little bit harder to get other drugs, but trying to get the drugs off the street just it's not going to work. So we have to figure out the why, and I think Mary Beth is absolutely right on that. Reduce demand for it, man. That's so good. And so what is it? I could think of a couple things, and I've told myself that I wasn't going to beat around the bush on some of the things that I believe in, and on the podcast, because it is my podcast that is, started out to be my video diary of my journey through recovery, and I want it to be that and more. I really think it's a landscape. I think it's a lot of things. We have all these labels that we want. Everybody has to be put in a label. You're black, you're white, you're straight, you're gay, you're trans, you're all these things that you have to. All these labels. You're Republican, you're Democrat, you're privileged, you're not privileged because of this or that, and it's like all these things. And I think some of those things can weigh on it. I think it's really hard to want to. It's really hard to get out of the system once you're in it. Man, I tell you what, there are some dudes that I work with that even one just text messaged me today, and I think I've shared a little bit of a story, and I don't want to betray his confidence. But this is a guy that has been in the system for a very long time, and recently he had a couple oopses, and we'll leave it at that. And what he did was, he's like, I am sick and tired of doing this crap. I do not want to go back to it. This is just going to be an oops. And what he did was he came back into the office. He signed up for extra services. He started to see me more. He started to see a therapist. And those oops didn't really come back to bite him. Got him a little extra time and have to do some charitable work. But he's going to be done and free of the system for the first time in many, many years. Next month, and that is so super cool to see. But he's been in it for years because the mental health problems and anxiety and depression and everything. It's not so easy to just go and find a doctor these days. It's not so easy to get them to give you pills, or it's the other way. It's so easy to get the pills, man. People come in all the time. It's like, yeah, I got hooked on painkillers because I broke my foot, and the doctor kept prescribing them, and I kept taking them, and then here I am. So I guess there's no science to it. But I think what Mary Beth was trying to say about reducing demand, creating opportunities for people to get in and do something that's going to, get them up in the morning. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when I was drinking, like I'd wake up in the morning and be like, fuck, I'm up, I'm awake again. I feel like shit. I have no job. I have no bank account. My kids won't talk to me. Miley won't talk to me. My friends don't want to talk to me. Fuck it. I'm going to go drink. And we can't make friends and family just talk to people. That's obviously not what I'm saying. And now I'm starting to ramble. But make things more accessible, to people. And I think a way to do that, honestly, is just to continue to talk. And that folks like myself and other people that are a lot better at articulating themselves than I am, and people that are willing to share, I think, is really the ticket. It's a way that we're going to really save people. And I'll give you an example now, because I wanted to talk about these couple of stories. So I had two different couples come in within about a month apart. And the second one was really, really crazy. But they both came in. It was a gentleman coming in with his significant other. And we had sat down and we talked and we came up with a game plan. And both these guys came in on their own. And both of them decided to do something that is extremely rare, which is, so both of these guys, by the time they left my office and after having a discussion with myself, their girlfriend, and them, both of these dudes signed up for drug testing on their own, randoms. So they signed up to call our color line every single day to see if their color's called, so they can randomly come in, pay out of pocket, and get these drug tests so they can show their significant others that they are really clean and sober, which is obviously, if you've been through this road before, you know how hard it is. You can swear up and down, especially early on. You've been drinking? No, I haven't been drinking. I can smell it. And then those very few minuscule times that I actually wasn't drinking, when I'd get asked that question, I'd be like, oh my God, how can you not believe me? You know what I mean? So these guys are taking the step. What's really crazy is they both were willing to sign up and to overcome this stuff. Like, they made this choice. And if we wouldn't have been there to offer that service at a relatively decent testing price, I'd say. And that's not me trying to sell it. It's just the other places I've heard, like our main test that we do, we charge $30, and the other place that is frequent and as much as us is 50. So anyway, the second couple that came in, I had brought up the testing. I'm like, hey, we just had a couple come in about a couple weeks ago, and he was willing to sign up for the color line. Would you be interested? He's like, absolutely. God dang. Hearing somebody say that and be willing to take that is just amazing. It's crazy because when the second group came in, he came in, it's like, yeah, I just went to this treatment center. I was there for just a few hours and I left. And I could kind of see right away that his girlfriend was kind of like, yeah, he just fucking left. You know what I mean? Just like, didn't even give it a shot. And so he starts telling me about how it looked like there's pubes all over his bed, that, people had stole from him, and he'd only been there a couple hours. He went to walk around, came back, and stuff was missing out of his stuff that he had put in his room. And so he called his girlfriend to come back and pick him up. And I said, okay, where'd you go? And he said the name of the place. And I said, oh yeah, that place sucks. And the look on his girlfriend's face was priceless. And the look on his was even more priceless, because he's like, thank you. I wasn't making it up. You know what I mean? Like, this place, and it was the first treatment center that I went to. So I had nothing to base it on then. And now I've been to a handful of others since. And the place really is poop. It's a giant bowl of poop. And so we got talking. His girlfriend that he brought in was at one time his fiance. Downgraded to girlfriend. I don't know if downgraded is the right word, but that's what happened with Miley and I. She had, again, if you've listened to the podcast, you know that Miley had to give me the boot. And then I had to figure out on my own. And I never knew if that would ever be a thing again. And so I worked, and then here we are. She's no longer my fiance, but she is my girlfriend. So it was another similarity, another connection. And so this dude left and showed up to my group. I think it was the next day. Maybe it was 2 days later. But he shows up to the group that I run, and I told him about. Dude hasn't seen a therapist yet, but here he is walking into my group. And he shared in the group, he's like, yeah, my girlfriend mentioned your name like 6 times. Now, normally this would be a bad thing, right? You don't want some other dude's girlfriend talking about you and to him all the time. But the things that we were able to talk about, that connection that we made in that hour of intake, and the back and forth and the little bit of hope that was given, just to see this dude it's hard to explain to people like, oh yeah, I drank this much, and they be like, whoa, that's crazy. But the moment that I say like, yeah, I'm a dude with 4 drunk drivings on my record, I don't know if I'll ever get my license back. I'm a felon. I might be able to get that drop, but right now I'm a felon. I have no driver's license. I got 4 drunk drivings, and you know what? I'm pretty fucking happy with my life, and probably the happiest I've been in a long time. Those types of conversations, for me, are really ones that draw it in. And evidence would suggest that both these guys showing up for their randoms, like they have, showing up for groups or their therapy when they walk through the doors on their own, is enough evidence for me to say, yeah, this is the ticket. The ticket is connection. Connection is the opposite of addiction, and I think that's why AA is so great and has helped so many people. I think it's because you can go into these rooms and you can get these connections with people. I'm not sure how much it is like, the steps themselves, which have also helped a lot of people. But I think it's more just being able to talk to people and relate. I really do. And I think that's why, having somebody to talk to that's neutral. There was, in one of my groups, I think it was a month ago, what people don't realize, the way it's set up, our office is like, it goes the courthouse and jail, and then it's got, the jail's kind of behind it, I guess, so that wasn't accurate, but it was jailhouse, bus station, small business, and then us. And so people walk right over from court and they come in and they say, hey, I need to sign up for this and I need to sign up for that and other thing. And so a lot of people think that we're like working hand in hand because the court sent us over. They think that we're working hand in hand with the court system. I remember in one of the groups, I told everybody, I said, like, look, all we do with the courts when they send you over here is we say, yes, so-and-so is here and is attending groups as they're supposed to. We don't go through, when you go in and you sit down to get an assessment or you're doing therapy, we don't call up your PO or the judge and say, hey, you'll never guess what Steve said, dude. You're never going to guess. You should lock him up. Hey, what's up? Sober Dad Podcast. It's a good one. You should check that out if you haven't checked that out before. And dude does crazy push-ups too, man. He's doing push-ups nonstop. It's freaking amazing. But so in one of my groups, I said, we can't tell them what you're talking about. So there's really no reason for you not to share when you're here, either in a group, talking with me, the recovery coach, or your therapist. It's only going to help you to share these things. And so what happened, 2 days later, I heard from one of the therapists, one of the women that were in my group, she's like, what did you say in your group? She's like, one of my clients came and like, you really can't share with the courts what I'm telling you? She's like, no, we can't. We're not going to do that. And so people started sharing. And it's like, man, the message was, don't waste your time. If the court's going to make you be here and you have to be here, what's it going to hurt? Right? What's it going to hurt to talk? And we've had clients come in that got their first drunk driving, it was bad luck and all these things. And maybe they should be there, maybe they shouldn't, but really the evidence isn't piling up that they need to. 209 push-ups today. Hell yeah. I don't know if I've done 209 push-ups in my life. I don't know if I've done 209 in my life. Dude's over here dropping 209 in a day. Good for him. I guess I'll just stay pudgy for the rest of my life. But yeah, so when it comes to connection and having somebody that you can go and you can talk to, latch onto that person and get it all out. And the one thing too that I'm drawing a brain fart because I'm looking at my phone because I wanted to look something up. Shit. Talking about it. Oh, it doesn't have to be one person. right? So AA wants you to have a sponsor where you air your dirty laundry and you do all these things and talk to one person. If that works, that's great. And that one person could be a therapist, it could be a sponsor, it could be a best friend, it could be a significant other, it could be anybody, but it could also be a group of people. And I think that's really important to understand too. Like, you may not want to talk about your physical relationships with certain people, but you have somebody else that you can handle that with. You may not want to talk with your job with certain people, but you may find anybody else that might be able to lend that ear to listen to that. So just keep talking is the moral of the podcast. Keep talking and do your push-ups, 209 a day. I don't think you're doing it. He's not doing it all at once, I don't think. But still, doing 209 a day is badass. So just wanted to get on and give a little update of where things are at. The podcast is my baby that I created. That I love the intro music. Thanks, Lonnie, if you're listening to this. The logo was made by another friend. Sets of 50 plus. Jesus Christ, dude, I haven't 50 fucking push-ups. Oh shit! I remember one time when I was in high school, we had to do these. What are they called? Midterms? Is that what they were called? You had these midterm exams or whatever. And we had this old dude as our gym coach. He was also coached varsity softball, and he was old school. And whenever you had midterms or whenever you had gym class, you either went in and got to fuck around the entire time and it was easy peasy, or he'd come in with some sort of problem. And I remember we had to do sit-ups and push-ups and down and backs. It was the middle of basketball season. And I remember by basketball practice that night, because gym was in the middle of the day, half of us could barely sit up. He made us do so many sit-ups. We could hardly stand up. And the next day was even worse. And I remember the basketball coach laughing at us because he was a teacher there too. He's like, should a punishment for missed free throws be more sit-ups tonight? And I wanted to cry. So anyway, I can derail the conversation and talk about stupid shit at any time, right? So, well, I 13 people listening on X, one person listening on Facebook. I had a couple people on YouTube earlier. I didn't think that we'd have that many people checking back in since it's been so long, but I do appreciate all of you for listening in. I do hope to be able to find a more consistent schedule to do these things. I'll upload this as I always do. So if you missed the live, well, you wouldn't know that, and I'm not talking to you. So anyway, whether you're listening live or you're listening later on, thank you very much. Leave a comment whenever you hear this or wherever you're listening to this about the connections you made in recovery. What kind of connections have you made that you didn't have beforehand? For me, it's the fact that I've now talked to people all over the U.S. On the podcast. I've talked to people from Canada, Scotland, Ireland, all over the world, really now. I hate saying that because it sounds like I'm being like, oh, this podcast has been all over the world. It hasn't, but I've talked to people from places I'll never see in real time. So anyway, your popping in and your interaction and you listening means the world to me. And let's keep talking and let's save lives. All right, you guys have a great weekend. It was great to be back. Take care.